Sleep and food intake. I think that's the most important two things that people struggle with.
Dawned on me that no one ever talked about like biochemical reasons for sleeping. So you need to work on the internal on top of the external.
Why do we need to sleep?
Oh my goodness. So if I am not sleeping, you're not repairing your proteins, you're not fixing your DNA, and so you're going to fall apart over time.
Did you ever reverse type 2 diabetes?
Of course. The really good people out there will decrease their glucose consumption. You can cheat the system.
How do we cheat the system?
Mwahahaha.
I'm Dr. Esra Çavuşoğlu, and I've been living a sober life for the past 19 years. My battle with addiction drove me to seek new methods, devices, and supplements to improve my physical and mental performance, enhance my quality of life, and ultimately live healthier for longer. From my experiences in addiction recovery, biohacking, and longevity to the latest global developments, from groundbreaking entrepreneurs to expert academics, the conversations I've had over the years are now featured weekly on Soberhead Podcast. Welcome to Soberhead Podcast. If you're like me, you've had nights where you try everything, cool room, no phone, special glasses, and still can't sleep. We keep asking, what's wrong with me? And keep trying random fixes. In today's episode with Dr. Sandra Kaufman, we finally connect the dots. We talk about the body's inner rhythm, the circadian clock, the system that tells every cell when to wake, when to rest, and how it starts to drift as we age. That's the real reason so many of us can't sleep. The internal system that should be guiding rest just isn't working. Dr. Kaufman helps us understand what's actually broken and, more importantly, how to repair it by optimizing our cellular pathways and restoring that natural rhythm. If you're tired of guessing, this episode will finally explain why you don't sleep, what's not working, and what you can do about it. This episode of Soberhead Podcast is brought to you with the support of Gedik Foundation for Education. For over 30 years, Gedik Foundation has been providing opportunities for youngsters, children, and women to realize their dreams through scholarships, projects, and social work. And we're proud to be on this journey together. Investing in education is investment in the future. Subscribe and support us in our quest to bring you the most current scientific data and continue your access to the world-renowned experts in their fields as guests on Soberhead, with Turkish translation and completely free of charge. Comment on the episodes, like, and share. Dr. Sandra Kaufman, welcome to Istanbul and welcome to my studio.
Pleasure to be here. I love Istanbul and you have a great studio.
I'm so glad that you're here and people loved our 2 episodes. Actually, I never did 2 back-to-back episodes with anyone, but there was so much to talk about. Today, we're going to talk about circadian clock and sleep. And so many people write to me like, because they know that I keep sharing, like, I have a sleeping problem, I wear glasses, I wear this, I do that, whatever, it works, it doesn't work. I keep getting like bazillion messages. I think today we're going to be addressing some, because we're not going to get into the psychology of it. We're not going to get into the physiologic like sleep apnea, whatever, but we're going to talk about something super important, which is the circadian clock and why we need to pay attention to it, because I keep saying to people, they go outside, look to the sun, stay out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. What is the circadian clock?
Oh, big, broad, excellent question. So the circadian clock are the molecules or the biological pathways that cause us to have a fluctuating 24-hour cycle. People like to think that sleep, as you said, it's emotional, it's in your head, it's this, it's that. And as it turns out, it's all biochemical.
Okay, and it does what?
So what it is it's sets of proteins. So there's 2 proteins that put you to sleep. And that's the clock protein, which has a great name, and then bemol, which does not have a great name. But these 2 proteins are made in the nucleus, and they stick together. It's called dimerizing. And then they're made, they stick together, they go back to the nucleus, and they activate something called the E-box, and that causes 2 other proteins to be made, cryptochrome and period. Those dimerize and go back into the nucleus, and it turns off the first set. So you get this on-off situation that just repeats itself, your entire life. And it's the amount of these proteins that you make and the length of time that they are around that controls how you sleep.
It seems like it got the Nobel Prize.
It did. Well, we've known that people had to sleep for a gazillion years, but we didn't really realize it until 2017 is when they won the Nobel Prize for these discoveries.
Why do we need to sleep?
Excellent question. So we need to sleep because 40% of your genome, the proteins are made while you are asleep. So if you are not sleeping, you're not repairing your proteins, you're not fixing your DNA, and so you're going to fall apart over time.
And it seems like circadian clock generates the human body's rhythm.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And in fact, every cell in your body, with the exception of your thymus and your testicles, which you and I don't have, every cell has its own internal clock. So if you took a cell out of your body, you could stick it in a little petri dish and it would go on, off, right? But it has to be controlled by the main orchestrator, which lives in your hypothalamus. So that clock sends out signals and it makes all of the clocks in your body be at the same time zone.
What are the specific things that needs that rhythm in one's body?
So many things need that rhythm. Your cardiovascular system has that rhythm. We know that your heart rate has variability in the morning versus the nighttime. Your hormones vacillate. Your blood pressure vacillates. Your cortisol levels vacillate. So I would venture to guess most of your metabolism oscillates with the circadian clock.
So what happened to people who are really living in these, like doctors? Like you're a doctor, and I'm sure when you were young, not anymore probably, but when you were young and you had to work in a hospital setting, you had nights without sleep, and then you go home and you need to sleep in the daytime. What happens when that clock just is messed up?
So that's an excellent question. In the short term, you sort of tolerate it and you just feel like garbage. In the long term, studies have demonstrated that people that have nighttime shifts or irregular shifts have higher incidence of morbidity and mortality. So higher incidence of diabetes, of osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease. There was a great study that demonstrated that women in cities that had a lot of extra light at night significantly increased the risk of breast cancer.
In the cities?
In the city.
Not even like in a play, in the cities?
In the city. So extra light exposure.
Like if you're in the Times Square in New York, you live there.
So if you have an apartment in Times Square and the lights are on all the time and you're not sleeping well, you are more likely as a woman to get breast cancer.
Wow. I knew that study, but I thought that it was made for people who are flight attendant.
Well, it's lots of studies. Yeah. Many studies have demonstrated this risk.
But they also showed also for flight attendants.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
their circadian rhythms are significantly challenged.
Can you explain us the whole rhythm? Like how does it work?
So as controlled by your pituitary, the hypothalamus, as these cells sort of start, sort of mentioned before, you make two proteins, clock and BMAL. They turn things on and you are awake. And at the same time, they're making the proteins that turn themselves off. So you get the on-off, on-off. At the same time, there's two extra proteins, ROR alpha and reverb, and one makes the cycle more and one makes the cell less. So you can control all of those things, right? So there's the on-off, and then there's increasing the vacillation. The layer of control on top of that is controlled by your sirtuins, specifically sirtuin 1 and sirtuin 6. So sirtuin 1 basically lives, they both live in the nucleus. 1 controls most of cellular homeostasis. 6 is more specific for sleep and DNA repair, right? And the levels of those are in turn controlled by your NAD levels that obviously fluctuate as well. And NAD is really interesting because NAD is made in a circadian fashion and it drives circadian rhythms. Which is why I encourage people, one of the reasons I encourage people not to get a big IV infusion because you're going to mess up your circadian levels.
I want to go back for a second to the master central clock because it's in front of me. I didn't know. I know that daytime, sun would be a stimulant, but what I'm seeing here is like the daytime is inhibition and nighttime is stimulation. In my podcast, I had a variety of people. And there was like one person that is I don't want to say light expert, but I want to say that, he's doing these glasses for people who has also blue light sensitivity. He was one of them. And I learned something from him that actually I may be able to tie to this next question. So when people are wearing sunglasses all day long outside, and then so therefore they cut that sun exposure, their eyes to sun exposure, therefore their brain. And then when they come back home at night, so you see the studio lights, so they turn on their lights and it's just all bright and blue. The melatonin production gets cut off. So can you explain that system? How does that work?
Well, so melatonin is driven by light and a variety of other things. They're called Zeitgebers, so external stimuli. And so when you are in a light situation, melatonin gets turned off. And in a dark situation, melatonin gets turned on. And melatonin starts the cycle in the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which orchestrates all of the cell's fluctuations. So when you are sort of playing with the light, as you said, with sunglasses during the day and a lot of extra light at night, you're absolutely sort of messing up the way your body perceives night and day. And that can certainly affect the levels of melatonin and a variety of other stimulus to sort of mess up your sleep cycles.
Is there something that, maybe I'm wrong, I think it was maybe in one of the podcasts or somewhere else I heard that, actually in the daytime, when we're outside, we collect the melatonin, we store the melatonin, and then when it gets dark, the melatonin is released.
Well, your cells are constantly making it.
Oh, okay.
Because you can't just go, oh, poof, right? It's a protein, you have to make it.
Okay.
But you're right, it absolutely gets released and it's active when you need it. And what's interesting about melatonin is melatonin puts you to sleep, but it doesn't keep you asleep.
Many people think that, like millions of people, if not like tens of hundreds of millions of people think that they need melatonin to sleep. And I learned from you actually that it just only helps you to fall asleep.
Correct.
But it doesn't keep you.
That is correct. And when you are young, you make a lot of melatonin. When you get older, you make less and less.
Why is that?
Because your body just stops making everything that it needs. It falls into that category. So
it's one of these things.
Of course. So if you supplement it when you are young, it helps a little bit and you don't need that much. As you get older, it's going to be significantly more helpful. The other thing that happens when you're young, if you take too much melatonin, it's on a negative feedback loop. So if your body perceives that you already have enough, you're going to make less.
Okay.
So as a young person, I recommend sort of against it, unless people are sort of want to take it
young
for a night or two.
Like what type of young?
Like 25 and below.
Oh, interesting. I had another guest who said that there's never a negative
feedback on melatonin. There absolutely is. Absolutely is. But as you get older and you need it, there's nothing wrong with taking it at all. And in fact, extra melatonin is extremely good for you. It's a free radical scavenger, and it does just a lot of amazing things around the body. And so some people say, take as much as you can handle. I personally tried to take up to 20, and that lasted for about 6 months, and I was so zonkered it didn't work. So I backed off. I take between 5 and 10 milligrams a night.
So you need it? Or you want it?
I want it. I don't necessarily need it. But I know it's beneficial, and it's a pattern, and I'm old, so I take it.
I'm not sure if I shared my journey with you in my podcast. Probably not, because I just started doing these small, short videos to my Instagram. But when I heard, before we did the podcast, actually, I heard a lecture of yours. It was actually this lecture that you did on a stage. And I'm like, okay, what the heck? Let me ask her, how can I sleep? And you did put me on some supplements just specifically for sleep, because you were very confident that that was going to make me sleep better. And actually it did, because I think it was at that point I was waking up in a weird way, like 5-6 times a night. And it was like around the clock. And I practically didn't change anything. I was just getting older. Because my sleep changed. I used to be a night owl. I would be studying until 2 or 3 because I'm a late bloomer with school as well. So, when I was doing my graduate program and stuff, I have a bit of an ADD in a weird way. So I have I need everything to be so calm outside and inside so that I can focus. So, and I would sleep until 10 a.m. And that was really working fine. But slowly, my wake up time went back to 9, then to 8, and I'm like, holy shit, what's happening? So I couldn't anymore sleep at 2, 3 a.m. because I needed my sleep. And still, actually, the best quality of sleep that I have is like something after like 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
In an interesting, I can go to bed at 9 p.m. I cannot, but if I go to bed at 9 p.m. and I wake up at 5, I still feel like shit. So that time, so I need that between the 5 to 7, between 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Anyway, so then it moved back to 7 a.m. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'm dying. I need my sleep because I can sit without eating, but without sleep, it's very difficult. And it became very scattered. It was so difficult. And after you tell me what to take, the amount of waking up reduced into 2, maximum 3 times a night. And, I drink water just up until before I go to bed. So it's probably normal. I'm able to track, not that I'm obsessed, but I'm able to see on my Oura Ring that the deep and the REM sleep extended to an hour and a half each. And I feel very rested. What did we do?
So we upregulated all of the proteins that your body stopped making with age.
Mm-hmm.
So how did we do that? Many things can do many things, but my simple formula is to increase BMAL1 and clock. It's selenium and spermidine.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you personally have high selenium levels, but if someone does not, that is a great place to start. Selenium is amazing because we know from studies that it increases DNA repair rates. And what's really interesting is you repair your DNA at night. So therefore, by helping you sleep, not only are you sleeping, you're increasing DNA repair. So that's fantastic. In terms of increasing sirtuins, sirtuin 1 is driven, the big 2 are resveratrol or pterosilbine, one of the 2. And 6 is fucodan. Fucodan is 6, and it comes from Japanese seaweed. And I believe we put you on fucodan. Yeah. And then I believe we also altered your NAD a little bit. We may not have.
With what?
Did we add NMN or NR?
Yes, we did.
So by doing all of these things, we upregulated all of the levels of proteins that control your sleep.
I now remember that was after I listened to you when you were on Dave Asprey about the orange peel thing. I'm like, God, orange peel, what am I going to do with that? And then I listened to another lecture. What does orange peel do?
So orange peel does many things. It has really cool substances in it, one of which is nobiletin. Nobiletin is an ROR alpha agonist. So it increases your ROR levels, which increases the vacillation of your BMAL clock period cryptochrome system. As you age, the amplitude of these waves decreases. Therefore, the orange peel via nobiletin increases that amplitude and gets you back to where you were before.
You can't do these based on a blood marker. It's like an anecdotal explanation what I'm struggling with.
That is correct. There is, at the moment, no way to measure any of this. No way. Which is unfortunate. I think ultimately with time we will be able to. Ginfinity was able at one point to measure sirtuin 1, but they've since taken that off the market, as far as I know. We can't measure any of the other sirtuins. We can sort of measure NAD, but that's challenging as well. And we certainly can't measure any of your clock proteins yet.
There's nothing.
No. I mean, if you were in a study and they sent things specially off to labs, I'm sure we could. But in terms of a general population person, you can't do it.
So basically, are you saying that we get older and then we start losing the ability to make these protein work or produce?
Absolutely. So every cell is a factory. And the job of a cell is to create proteins. The type of cell dictates the type of protein that you're going to make, right? So a kidney cell makes kidney proteins and a liver makes liver proteins. The good news, however, is that every cell makes these circadian proteins, right? But cells fail over time and they can't make either enough of the protein, or they don't make quality proteins, or the proteins get glycated, or they get oxidized. They just get very damaged. And so when you have proteins either that you don't have enough of them or they're damaged, they're just not going to work as well. So the whole longevity protocol is about making sure your cell is optimal so you can make all of the proteins that you need and then to keep them as safe as possible. So we're trying to make sure they're not glycated and they're not oxidized because we want to reset your cellular system to be more of a younger person, hopefully like 30-ish, than an older person.
So what's the effect on telomeres, the circadian?
So it's really interesting. So I got extremely interested in circadian rhythms indirectly by trying to look at all of these other activities. So I was on a binge to try to figure out how to optimize my telomere length. I've come to the conclusion that super long telomeres are not going to be helpful, and super short telomeres are clearly not helpful. But you want robust, middle-of-the-road, maintaining length telomeres. And it turns out that that is driven by not only NAD, but your clock protein. So I thought, oh my goodness. So if I am not sleeping, not only am I not, I feel like garbage, but it's suggesting that I don't have the clock protein A to make me sleep, but B, also my telomeres are going to suffer. So what's interesting about the circadian proteins is that they all have accessory duties.
Okay.
Right? So clock is particularly interesting because clock drives TERT, which is one of the enzymes in the telomerase world, right? Clock also drives the creation of something called heterochromatin protein 1, alpha, that increases the stability of the DNA in the nucleus, creates the ability to sort of condense your DNA. It's called heterochromatin, and that it reduces your risk of DNA-driven cancer. So again, by not sleeping, the risk of morbidity and mortality escalates because you don't have these proteins that help in other worlds.
Tell me why super long telomeres are not helpful?
Because there are enzymes in the telomerase. It is a giant set of enzymes. It's a complex, right? And if they get too long, the system just cuts them off. It's pointless to have them extended beyond a certain point. It just doesn't work. But obviously, if they're too short, if it's less than 500 base pairs, the telomerase complex can't sit, or that's not true. The reproductive complex can't sit on a DNA to replicate your DNA so that you can split a cell. So you're not ever going to have super long telomeres. Again, you just want middle of the road, healthy telomeres that don't decline, don't get oxidized, and don't get glycated.
Is there a way that we can extend them? Because I had Bill Andrews doesn't think that anything we do is like extending our telomeres.
I tend to agree with him. I don't think we're extending them. I think we are protecting them.
Okay.
I think we are seriously protecting them and there's a million things you can do. That's not true. There's a dozen things you can do to stabilize your telomere length.
So we were saying like with aging, this rhythm changes. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so absolutely. People feel, as they get older, that you don't sleep as well and that it shifts, right? And this is why we have early bird dinner at 5 o'clock, right? People go to bed super early and they get up super early. It just shifts, right? And they don't sleep as well and the hours are shorter. What's interesting is if you took measurements of people, of their BMAL and their clock, and you superimposed it upon a graph of how people sleep and how it changes, it's identical. So it's extremely evident that aging sleep issues derive from clock and BMAL issues.
Well, I mean, I think with age, everything shifts. It's so interesting, I was listening to you today. Once again, we were at this private event, and how you describe longevity medicine is kind of looking specifically to cells are very interesting, actually, because, I do talk with a lot of doctors, and they're kind of working on more or less everything, like, your cholesterol level, your, gut health, your thyroids and stuff. But even though you look to these, I'm sure, but you're very much focused to, let's say, what we were talking to, because you believe that, if you can fix what's happening in the cell itself, all the rest are going to be kind of most things are going to be working properly. Therefore, you're not going to be, unless you live obviously like in a super junk food, only junk food. So that's why you're calling this a longevity medicine.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. As you pointed out, I am cell-based. We look at different things through different lenses. And traditional medicine is through organs, right? We go to the pulmonologist for our lungs and the cardiologist for our heart and our dermatologist for our skin. My take, because I started out as a cell biologist, is that we need to look at the cells first. Because all cells generally have the same issues. And if you can fix all of those issues, you're going to fix a huge percentage of medical problems. Once you've optimized base cells, then you can go in and like look specifically at your thyroid or your heart or what have you. But a lot of problems just are based on cellular function. Like one of my favorite examples is if you look at your mitochondria, sirtuin 3 determines the energy source for your mitochondria. Am I going to use glucose? Am I going to use lipids? How am I going to do it, right? So as your sirtuin 3 levels fall, which they start to by the time you're 35, all of a sudden you're not burning the lipids that you used to. So where do? They float around in your vasculature. What does that cause? Causes atherosclerosis, right? So if you fix the mitochondria, you could theoretically fix your cardiovascular health.
It's really fascinating because, the same thing can be explained from so many, like you said, different lenses.
Of course. And I get to be a cell biologist and I get to be a physician trained in Western medicine. I'm an anesthesiologist, so I live and breathe by, physiology and all that sort of thing. And as a longevity physician, I get to say, okay, well, we know what's coming down the pike. Let's avoid it as much as possible.
So basically, I'm sure you need to look to the blood work, but you give or take, you kind of understand from people's age, probably that what's happening. You may not even need to look. I mean, let's say if they're your patients and you see them monthly, I'm sure you are looking to improve their health. But if someone comes to you, like, let's say, at whatever age, let's say 60 years old, and you just take a good
history and physical
or emotional, whatever, so you can say pretty much what's missing in them.
Absolutely. In fact, when you're trained as a med student and a young doctor, we always know that the history or the story is the most important part of diagnosis. It absolutely is. So if someone says, everyone in my family has cholesterol issues, no, they have cholesterol issues. If you look at older people and they get the white, yellowy accumulations under their eyes, they have high cholesterol. You can just look at them. You can see central obesity, which is a sirtuin 1 deficiency. How are they walking? What are their activity levels? You can guess osteoporosis. You can guess likelihood of stroke. That being said, you can't guess everything. So, so we do look at, I'm very good at least I think that I'm good at looking baseline labs. I want to make sure someone's kidney function is good, make sure their liver function is good. Make sure their bleeding time is okay. So before we start giving medications and supplements, I want to make sure that everything is sort of status quo, and then know what else is erroneous. So what is their lipid panel? What is their oxidized LDL, more importantly? What is their thyroid? What is their level of inflammation? And you can usually guess, like overweight people are inflamed, other people tend not to be. As you're older, you're more inflamed. But you're absolutely right. Usually physical and story will tell you everything.
Today you were mentioning a few words about statin. What are your thoughts about it?
I think that statins have some very good qualities and they have some very bad qualities. What statins do is they block the enzymes necessary to make cholesterol, right? So you have less cholesterol. The problem is there's lots of things along that pathway that you need. So for example, coenzyme Q10 is in that pathway. Squalene is in that pathway. So people that are on statins tend to, A, have energy deficiency because they're coenzyme Q10 deficient, and they tend to have very dry skin because they're not making any squalene, right? They also have usually a deficiency because you need that cholesterol to make sex hormones. So that's a problem. On the other hand, statins do lower your cholesterol, which can be important. And they also, there's some evidence that your stem cells really do well with statins.
Oh, wow.
So everything has pros and cons. But if you're trying to specifically measure someone's or treat someone's high lipid levels, the choices are either decrease the production, which is what statins do, or increase the utilization. So depending on the individual, I'll frequently say, well, let's not take a statin. Let's take, so for example, a fibrate, like fenofibrate. So we can increase utilization without all the issues of decreasing production.
Is that a medication or a supplement?
It's a medication.
I heard that naringin also works on the cholesterol.
It does.
Lipid.
Naringenin is wonderful. Lowers cholesterol. It increases osteogenesis. So, and naringenin is actually an orange peel extract as well. So you get lots of wonderful things if you take orange peel.
It seems like it's better than red yeast rice.
Yeah. So the enzyme in red yeast is exactly the same as the one in statins. So it's the same effect. It's just not as strong. The other thing that really helps with lipid levels is black seed oil. There's a chemical called
you gave that to
thymogen.
me,
Yeah. And it's just magical. 1,500 milligrams a day will significantly help your lipid panel.
So let's share with our audience a little bit about what type of supplements they can use for sleep, for these, BMAL, clock, sirtuins, NAD, AMP kinase, and ROR. It seems like if you fix these, you're able to have a better quality sleep. Can we share what do they need?
Yeah, absolutely. So in order to optimize BMAL and clock, selenium and spermidine, absolutely essential. Sirtuin activation is going to be either resveratrol and pteristilbene, based on your lipid panel. And then fucodan is absolutely necessary. That's your sirtuins. The NAD precursors, absolutely essential. Either NMN or NR, or there are a variety of other options that are coming up. And then the ROR alpha, that would be your nobiletin. And another interesting option there is neoruscogenin.
Yeah, what's that? I'm reading.
So it's a really cool protein found in butcher's broom.
Oh, okay.
And what's cool about that is it actually increases smooth muscle content.
What does that mean?
So the smooth muscle is around blood vessels.
Okay.
So if you have hemorrhoids or if you have varicose veins, for example, that is extremely helpful. So if people come to me and they say, my hemorrhoids are killing me and I can't sleep, then neoruscogenin is for them.
So what I'm seeing here, it promotes the muscle hypertrophy. It's like for not like the big skeletal muscle.
It's not skeletal
because I was
muscle.
scared for a second, think that.
No, it's smooth
Very
muscle.
specific.
So it's basically only affects muscle around veins.
One more thing I'm reading here for AMP kinase is that the metformin. So you're not giving that for the blood sugar regulation.
No, metformin does many things. It is an amazing medication. It does from soup to nuts, so many things. In fact, I even forget it's a medication because it's so common. But so in this category, so what metformin does, it uncouples your electron transport chain in your mitochondria. So it causes your body to register having less energy, so less ATP production. As a consequence, you have more AMP, so that gets picked up as AMP kinase activation, and then it's a sort of a long whatever. But what that does is it tells your body to go into a state of hibernation, and that helps you sleep.
Oh.
But metformin does many things. It changes your gut macrobiota. It changes how you process glucose in your liver. It does many, many things. So it's an extremely useful medication.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that I'm on all of these because, definitely my sleep got better. Let me ask you a little bit now, since I think we covered most sleep things. Yeah. So basically, we're saying that normally with age, these things would decline.
Correct.
On some people, they don't. That means that, it's kind of like there's like a probably, I don't know if it was with you or with someone else that was shared, like 10% of the population may have great genetics that they may live whatever until, and there is another 10% horrible genetics that they will be getting sick all the time. But 80% is give or take, it's the same. So it seems like with sleep is like that too. It's like there's a 10%, they get old and they can sleep throughout the night. And there's another 10%, since they're young, they cannot sleep. And the rest, what you're saying, if I did correctly understood, is that they will get these problems.
So what you're sort of saying in words, and what I learned in like math and statistics, is that life is a bell-shaped curve, right? Most people are in the middle. some people are on the sides, and even fewer people are at the ends of the spectrum. And yeah, it falls into the 10-10 sort of 80 category. And so 80% of the people are going to age in the same way. You're absolutely right. They're going to not sleep because this is just part of aging. The good news is that it's treatable.
We were talking before getting into the studio. You said that whether light or not light, when you get to a certain age, if you don't fix these malfunctioning cellular system, you can wear like 3 glasses on top of each other. It's not going to make you sleep.
Right. So different people don't sleep for different reasons. So if you are young and all of your systems are still in place, fixing them isn't going to do anything because they're not broken. If you're old and this is why you're not sleeping, then this works, right? But if you're old and you have other things going on and you wear your glasses at the right time and you turn the light off at the right time and you still have all this biochemical anomaly stuff going on, you're still not going to sleep. And one of the reasons I went down this rabbit hole was I went to many lectures from the experts on sleep. And they all said, turn the temperature down in your room, affect the light level, don't eat, do this, do that. And it dawned on me that no one ever talked about like biochemical reasons for sleeping. It was all the Zeitgebers, like all the external stimuli that people focus on and not the internal. So you need to work on the internal on top of the external. So that's sort of the take-home message.
Yeah, like sometimes I go to places that their cooling systems or air conditioning are not working fine. It really is difficult for me to sleep in a warmer temperature. It wasn't like that when I was young. So it's like with age, everything shifts. So like when you're 30, I think like you can just...
When you're 30, you can sleep on a cardboard box through a rainstorm. It makes no difference, right? As we get older, it doesn't work anymore.
Sandra, what's coming? Because last time we spoke, let's say it's been quite a while. What's new in the horizon in this longevity arena?
Oh gosh, it's always something new.
Anything very exciting is coming?
I think the things that we are used to doing now are becoming more acceptable. So for example, I tell my patients they should have exosome infusions monthly to quarterly. And now I have so many people doing that and they're so happy about it. So that's not really new, but it's progressing. I think that adding plasmapheresis to that is the next big hurdle and making it more readily available. So the idea is you take out the bad toxins and the microplastics and unmisfolded proteins, et cetera. So you clean yourself out and then you load up with all the good stuff. So sort of to emulate the parasymbiosis model. Beyond that, of course, we're working on the Muse cells, and I don't have a lot of experience at all with those. So it is on the horizon, and we're getting there. I don't think that gene therapy is quite there yet, but we're making some headway.
Do you believe in them?
In gene therapy?
Yeah.
I worry that we don't have a way to control it yet. We are able to insert genes into cells to make various proteins, but because it's not actually part of the genome, we don't have the ability to say, I have enough, I don't have enough.
What I heard, and I did an interview with Patrick Sewell, and what they do, actually, they do measure your gene sets, like for classical longevity genes, and they kind of give you what you need. But, like you said, it's very new. You don't know really if it's working or not.
Well, you can measure it. For example, like follistatin. You can have a gene put in to increase your levels of follistatin. But what we don't have the ability to control how much follistatin you're going to make.
Oh, that's
right?
what you're saying.
So, for example, we don't really know if it oscillates. Maybe it's a circadian protein, right? But if you put the gene in, it doesn't go into your genome per se. It goes into the nucleus and you make it, but the standard on-off switches aren't there. So you're going to make it, but you may not make what you need when you need it, and you may not be able to decrease making it when you need to. So the control mechanisms is what we're sort of missing.
Oh, now I understand. So basically what you're saying, so I can connect, like we've been talking about how the system works, like melatonin on, melatonin off, whatever on, off. So you say the biology works like that. Biology is not constantly dumping something in one system. And you're saying that if any of these gene therapies is constantly releasing that gene, that protein, that may be harmful in certain other systems. And we don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So there are, I think, few FDA approved gene therapies.
Well, there's gene therapies approved for people that have no ability to make anything. And that's reasonable, right? If a child is born with a gene deficiency for protein X and they need that for life, that's fantastic.
Okay, great.
Nothing is truly approved, as far as I know, for longevity purposes yet. We'll get there, and the controls will get there. We're just not there yet.
What are your thoughts on rapamycin?
I am not a huge fan of rapamycin. Because mTOR is responsible for building, right? mTOR pathway is opposite of the AMP kinase pathway. They both measure energy and nutrients, and one goes into hibernation and the other one builds things. So the mTOR pathway builds things, right? And if you look physically at like mice and such on rapamycin, they do look significantly better. But if you actually read the studies, cells that have to turn over rapidly can't when on rapamycin, right? So hippocampal cells don't do very well. Intestinal cells don't do very well, right? And because of this, people are saying, oh, well, maybe a little rapamycin would be fine, right? So it's a couple milligrams, like maybe 1 day out of a week or 1 day out of 2 weeks. And the answer is those are random guesses, right? And it concerns me because my hippocampus is my memory. And if I live forever and don't remember it, it's not worth it. Right? It's not worth it. So anything that is a partial AMP kinase activator also is a partial inhibitor of mTOR. So for example, metformin will partially deactivate your mTOR. So as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough until we are better able to control mTOR deactivation.
Yeah, I started seeing in this field, what I watch, what I read, that people who were so religiously taking rapamycin, meaning once a week, now they're doing like these pulses. They do like something like maybe once every couple of months, like 1 month out of, let's say, 4 months, 5 months, not like constant every week. Because of that reason, probably.
Yeah, people are trying to figure out what the optimal doses are and the timing. And the answer is we don't know. And every decision we make every day is a risk-benefit analysis. What you eat for breakfast, when you go to the gym, where you deposit your money, what bank you go to, everything is a risk-benefit. And so when you think about rapamycin, it's the same thing. Is it worth not knowing about your memory or other health issues, right? And that is an extremely conservative approach for me because I
you're not that
I am not conservative. I take 13 other pharmaceuticals, but after risk benefit analysis, I decided that those are valuable to me, and I think rapamycin is not.
Can we chat about glucose consumption? Because I like it, you like it, but in today's conversation, you warned people that, difference between the glucose, the fructose, and why one is better than the other, and what type of interventions we can do. First of all, tell me why glucose or fructose, like why it's bad for us. What happens?
Yeah, sure. So glucose, I like to say, in a very, very simplistic model.
Sure.
The glucose is sticky, right? A lollipop sticks to you on the outside if you drop it on your sweater. It's also sticky on the inside. So it sticks to your tissue. And it does it in the form of something called AGEs. It's my favorite acronym because it's age, but it's advanced glycation end products. And what it is a glucose molecule, or fructose, it's basically any reducing sugar, combines with a protein under oxidizing conditions, and will oxidize over time, with a heavy metal, usually iron, and it creates these globs. Essentially, it's a protein with a glob sticking on it, which is a piece of a glucose molecule. And it destroys that protein. So your body just spent a lot of time making a protein, and now all of a sudden it's just useless. So that's bad. Secondly, these AGEs are extremely inflammatory, and we all become more inflamed over time, so that's not so good. And they destroy tissues. They land on long-lived tissues, and they destroy them. So collagen is the biggest example. If it lands on your bone collagen, you become frail. You're more likely to get fractures as you get old. It's one of the big reasons that skin droops over time because your collagen is broken. So AGEs are just terrible. And the question is, which sugars are worse? And everyone, says poo-poo about glucose. Fructose is 7 to 10 times worse. So what we want to do, so the really good people out there will decrease their glucose consumption. As you and I are not the best people in terms of glucose, you can cheat the system.
How do we cheat the system?
So first thing you can do is you can decrease the amount of glucose that gets absorbed into your gut, right? Carbohydrates get broken into smaller pieces, and these smaller pieces then get broken into, like glucose and fructose, that get transported into your system, right? And it's done by two enzymes. There's alpha amylase and alpha glucosidase in your digestive system. Conveniently, you can block those two things so that when you eat carbohydrates, you don't break it down into simple sugars, so you don't absorb it.
Ever?
So the problem with this, however, right, everything has a drawback, is that you fart like crazy. Because what happens is you're feeding your microbiome and they're like, ooh, bread, carbohydrates. They metabolize them, they create a lot of methane, and you fart a lot. So you want to reduce it, but not entirely. So drugs that reduce it entirely are going to be your acarbose, but other things do it as well. So chlorogenic acid is my favorite thing that does it. Very prominent in coffee. So
green coffee bean, I guess.
Yeah. And there's a variety of natural substances that will do it. But that's step one. So reduce the amount that gets in.
Acarbose would reduce totally?
Probably 60 to 70%.
Yeah, and the other probably 30, 40 we need it for our brain, for our,
of course.
for our energy.
Right. You don't want to reduce it all, right? You just want to take it down a notch, right? So other things reduce the amount of gluconeogenesis. So when your body needs glucose, it breaks it down from the liver and you release glucose. And you can inhibit that with a variety of enzymes. So that's kind of cool.
How does that system work? So you eat it and it does get metabolized in your gut.
So you're storing extra glucose, right?
You always store.
You're always storing extra stuff, either in fat or your liver. Short-term stuff goes to your liver, long-term stuff goes to fat. And then when your body needs energy, you create it.
Oh, so with your system, we're blocking it we're releasing it actually, kind of blocking it from the liver to get out, or peed out.
So it's multi steps. The idea here is to reduce the amount of glucose in your bloodstream.
Okay.
Right? So number one, limit the amount that goes in. Two, don't make any new stuff.
What do you mean by that?
So if you're storing energy in your liver, we're not going to break it down into glucose. So you block gluconeogenesis. So that's step two, right? The other thing you can do is you can drive it into cells. So you can upregulate glucose receptors on cells so that if you want more in your muscle for more energy, you can do that. You can upregulate receptors.
Okay, how do you do that?
Oh, there's a variety of over-the-counter supplements that can do that. There's 8 or 10 of them. It's quite easy.
But then it may, if you have too much, and then if you do not do workout, then it will go into your fat cells.
Exactly.
So it has to be very
so you
planned.
want a little bit of everything.
So
right?
it needs to be super planned so that it goes to the right place.
Exactly. No. Yeah, no, this is an entire protocol. This is very systemized. Then my favorite thing to do, and we've had this discussion, is you can pee out extra glucose. So there's sodium glucose reuptake inhibitors. So your kidney absorbs or filters out all the glucose, and then under regular circumstances, it reabsorbs it into your blood system. So this medication, or this family of medications, blocks the reabsorption. So essentially glucose floats around, you use what you're going to use, your kidney filters it out, and then you just pee it out.
So it's such a weird human body system that, it filters it out, but it puts it back in your system. Why?
I don't know. No one knows.
Okay.
Maybe some evolutionary expert would know why it does that, but I don't.
So that glucose kind of moves in our system in so many different pathways. So therefore, in order to block it, we need to block it from so many other
Exactly.
pathways. So let's come to type 2 diabetes. Or pre-diabetic people, let's say. Obviously, if they're pre-diabetic, most continue to eat the way they are. I never saw someone freaking out, oh, I may get into the diabetic state, so let's stop. They continue. But then the mistake is, kind of a mistake, is that only blocking one pathway. So
Yeah.
it keeps coming back from different pathways. So sneaky.
Yeah. So you need to hit multiple. Here's one of my favorites. You're going to like this one. So remember we said that glucose was bad, but fructose was way worse.
Yeah.
Right? So glucose gets taken into cells, especially in diabetics, especially, right? Because they have high glucose. And it gets turned into something called sorbitol. And sorbitol is very osmotically active, meaning it draws water to it, right? And this is one of the reasons that if nerve cells get affected by this, and when water comes in osmotically, it destroys nerve cells, and that's why diabetics get neuropathy, right?
Oh, wow.
Right? So glucose goes into the cell, becomes
They get
sorbitol.
drawn in it almost.
Yeah. And then the sorbitol becomes fructose, right? So you're destroying nerves with the osmosis, and it's 10 times more glycosylating, right? So that's a bad pathway. But there's one enzyme controlling all of it, and it's an enzyme called aldose reductase.
Okay.
So conveniently, there's a drug called an aldose reductase inhibitor. So you can block that entire pathway. So glucose is bad, but it's way better than sorbitol or fructose. So personally, I take an aldose reductase inhibitor every day. And what's interesting about that is I'm not diabetic, but I'm preserving tissues from glucose from any reason. And I actually know a few people that have had like new onset cataracts, and this has reversed that.
Wow. Am I taking it?
I don't think so, but you can.
Okay. No, because it's good. I mean, that doesn't mean, of course, people need to go out and eat like all the nonsense thing. But if you want to enjoy yourself time to time, wow, that's amazing. I think this has to be teach to, endocrinologists, because, it's just like the only thing they give, what I'm seeing is like one, or if they're lucky, two different molecules, and you require people to diet. These people are your patients. Yeah, probably they're reducing the intake. They should. But yet, with all the, like you counted like 4 or 5 different interventions, even more?
Yeah, there's more of them. There's a whole nother set of things that we can do. But yes.
Did you ever reverse type 2 diabetes?
Of course.
Okay. But without strict like diet and exercise?
No, because you get people to lose weight. You optimize their cells, you change all of the things contributing to the disease state, right? And then you reduce the damage from glucose, and they're no longer diabetic. I mean, they may be pre-diabetic, but I actually think that everyone is pre-diabetic, especially as we get older. But yeah, it's absolutely possible to reverse it.
They even say that's like, they also, I think it was Mindy Pels that she was saying like, they should also call pre-diabetic people. Like, it starts at an early time.
Of course it does. Of course it
Well,
does.
I'm sure after listening to this, people are going to like bombard me like, what are these medications? Why can't we take it? Why can we not take it? But I mean, it's better not to give a name of some, drug, so people do not go and exaggerate. But that's amazing.
So let me throw in my favorite one, because this is simple and everyone can do this.
Yeah.
So when a glucose molecule or any reduced sugar becomes an AGE, an advanced glycation end product, and they are floating around in your body, the only thing that we know of to get rid of those is lactoferrin.
Okay.
And lactoferrin is an incredibly benign molecule. You can get it on Amazon.
Any specific milligram?
As much as you want, as little as you want.
Okay.
It floats around. It's going to help you carry iron around your body if you're deficient, but most people aren't. But what it does in larger quantities, right, is it reduces inflammation and it gets rid of AGEs. So I call it my magical AGE sponge. So you eat the lactoferrin and then voop, you pee it out.
Are you taking, or is someone needs to take these like right around the food time, or like once a day, whatever time of the day?
Once a day is fine. Once a day is fine.
Wow, this was like an amazing session, because sleep and food intake, I think that's the most important 2 things that people struggle with.
Yeah, I think if we threw sex in there, like we'd have everything needed for the basics of life.
Anything else you would like to share?
No, I think that's a lot of information.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, and it was such a great pleasure to have you face to face, because through the computer, TV, whatever, it's not this intimate, and we were able to do the back and forth better.
Oh, no, absolutely. And thank you for bringing me to Istanbul. It is amazing here.